For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. It's an immutable law. It's a law not only of dynamics and physics, but also a law that concerns history. It's clear that every consequence is determined upstream by something that happened earlier. We could also say this for the career of politicians, influenced, according to various analysts and their biographers, by what happened in the past. Take Benjamin Netanyahu, the current Prime Minister of Israel. Well, his political ideas, his actions, probably even his being so uncompromising towards some opponents, we're not referring to political opponents. It's because of what occurred. When he was very young, when he was little more than a boy, after finishing his military service and before becoming a professional politician, something that happened at the beginning of the summer of 1976, something that marked the young Bibi Netanyahu and his family for the rest of their lives. A law that encompasses not just dynamics and physics, but it's clear that every consequence is determined upstream by something that happened earlier. We could also say this for the career of politicians influenced accordingly. This something is codenamed Operation Thunderbolt, Operation Lightning, but in Israel, it's also known as Operation Yoni. Our story starts on June 27th, 1976. The reason for the name will be revealed soon. There's a plane, a commercial plane, a plane flying from Athens, the capital of Greece, to Paris, the capital of France. It's an Airbus, an A300, a flight like many others, a tourist flight. But that flight at 12:30 on June 27, 1976, changes course. There are no technical failures. There's no bad strike. There are no logistical inconveniences. There's something else. There's a hijacking in progress. On that flight, 4 passengers, 2 Germans and 2 Palestinians, take control of the aircraft. They are terrorists. They act in the name of a cause, the Palestinian cause represented by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, to which is added as reinforcement that of the Germans of the revolutionary Zelen, a fringe of extreme left-wing terrorism. The 4 hijackers intend to demand not only a ransom in money, but also the release of many prisoners in Israel, but also in Europe, all terrorists or guerrillas, depending on the occasion. All men and some women who are serving their sentence for crimes committed in the Middle East and in the Old Continent. The hijacking of airplanes is not a novelty, and it will not be for a long time. There will be many hijackings even later, not only of aircraft, but of ships. We Italians think about the case of the Achille Lauro. We could almost call it a trend. The hijackings, along with the kidnappings and abductions, is not a trend to show off. It's simply a period marked by the will to carry on a certain type of crime for abductions and a certain type of terrorism for, indeed, the hijackings, aimed at achieving results, quick and satisfying results for those who carry out these actions. Let's go back to that flight, Air France Flight 139, to that Airbus that deviates its route and heads towards Benghazi. In Libya, it becomes clear why. Benghazi, Libya, in 1976 is governed by Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. It's a country friendly to the Palestinian cause. It's also a sponsor in certain terms of Palestinian terrorism. Gaddafi makes no secret of his sympathies and funds some terrorist groups in Benghazi. It can't be said that it's the final stop of the journey. It seems like a technical stop, a refueling stop, and also to disembark. A woman who is pregnant fakes a miscarriage, and for this reason she is released and is allowed to return home to Great Britain. The flight, after the technical stop, departs towards another destination much further away, in the heart of Africa, Entebbe, an airport stop on the edge of Lake Victoria. We are in the heart of Africa, and this explains the background behind me that identifies the stories that concern Africa itself. It's there that the Airbus lands at the old Entebbe stop. The Uganda of which Entebbe is a part is governed by a dictator we have already met in our videos, Idi Amin, a bloodthirsty, paranoid, schizophrenic dictator affected by various disorders. He claims to have night visions, to have premonitory dreams. He claims to be in contact with the Prophet Muhammad. In short, he is a very picturesque character. He is also a character with many faces. When he came to power, he did so with the acquiescence of the Western allies, starting with the English and the French, and with the help of the Israelis as well. In time, a few months, Idi Amin changes his mind, changes everything. He switches from one front to another, expels the Europeans, expels the Asians, expels the Israelis, who in the meantime had helped to build various infrastructures, including the old terminal of Entebbe Airport, a circumstance that will also prove decisive in the affair of Air France Flight 139. Idi Amin Dada welcomes the terrorists with good manners, even though he is informed almost after the fact. When the Airbus touches down, Idi Amin has known about the hijacking for less than an hour, but he is willing to help the terrorists. He is also willing to welcome a second commando, an entirely German commando led by Wilfried Bose, who arrives by land and takes control of part of the old terminal. The rest of the terminal is militarized, occupied by the Ugandan army, which is tasked with not letting anyone out. Idi Amin is seen more and more often with the prisoners of the flight and the crew. They remember it very well. His appearances, his arrivals in a luxurious Mercedes, him getting out colossal every time, with a new uniform and overloaded with decorations, each one more tacky than the other. Idi Amin gladly entertains terrorists, but also dispenses smiles to prisoners, to hostages. He tells them that he is the guarantee that no harm will be done to them. Believe it or not, certainly in a situation like a hostage-taking, anyone who presents themselves in a friendly manner gets at least a minimum of credit. One of the effects of Idi Amin's arrival is also the start of real negotiations for the release of the hostages, especially the Western hostages. Despite the Ugandan dictator's aversion to Europe, the vast majority of Europeans are released. They are allowed to return home, with special flights from the English and French landing in Entebbe and loading these passengers. However, not everyone leaves. All Israeli citizens and those of Jewish faith, as well as the crew, remain on site, who don't feel like leaving. About 100 people, men, women, and old children, in hand. To hijackers, to terrorists, Israel receives the demands of the terrorist group that are deemed excessive. $5 million in ransom and the release of 40 prisoners from jails plus other prisoners in Europe. But that is a matter that concerns the European governments. This last issue, among other things, falls after the release of the European hostages. The issue of money and the release of 40 Palestinian prisoners remains. Israel pretends to negotiate, asks for an extension to the ultimatum, the one that is supposed to expire on July 1st at 2 p.m. Indeed, because the hijackers plan to kill a prisoner every hour after the ultimatum expires. Until they get what they want, I say it clearly, they do not intend to back down from their purpose. And this is where Israel values the double track. On one hand, the negotiation or fake negotiation, and on the other, the Operation Thunderbolt, a hostage liberation operation, a military operation. The Sayeret Matkal, the special intervention unit of the Israeli army, is involved. Agreements are made with two neighboring governments, Tanzania and especially Kenya, both states that have reasons for friction with Idi Amin. Kenya in particular is irritated by the activism of Idi Amin, who has been moving for too long and wants to expand Ugandan control in the center of Africa. Having received the necessary reassurances, the action begins on July 4th. The command is entrusted to an officer, a lieutenant colonel. His name is Jonathan Netanyahu. Yes, you heard right. He is the older brother of Benjamin Netanyahu. He is 3 years older than him. Jonathan Netanyahu is 30 years old. His men call him Yoni. He is a young officer, but already very energetic and capable. The younger brother, Benjamin, also left the Sayeret Matkal not long ago after another hostage rescue operation, an operation in which he proved successful. Benjamin's shoulder was injured by bullets from a hijacker. Yoni remains in service. He is the one who organized the hostage rescue plan. He is the one who asked for the collaboration of both the Israeli civil engineers who had built the old Entebbe terminal, as well as other Israeli civilians, including a merchant from Haifa who owns a luxurious white Mercedes. Why does he ask him? Because Yoni Netanyahu's plan is brilliant. It involves an infiltration of a commando at Entebbe, arriving by air, unnoticed, on a convoy of vehicles led by a Mercedes. With Ugandan insignia, does Yoni Netanyahu want to fake a surprise visit by Idi Amin, one of the TAR, in order to disorient the Ugandan perimeter guards and then infiltrate the terminal and free the hostages? For this reason, this white Mercedes is borrowed and repainted black, like the one usually used by Idi Amin. The convoy boards 4 Israeli Air Force Hercules OC-130s and departs for a technical stop in Nairobi. Another plane, a medical rescue Boeing 707, has also landed in Nairobi. Because after all, as we know, nothing ever goes according to plan, there can always be some injuries. And another Boeing is in flight as a mobile command station coordinating the ground military action. After departing from Nairobi, 4 Israeli planes set course, without declaring their flight plan but covered by radar. Both Tanzanians and Kenyans towards Lake Victoria, they glide just a few meters from the water, without position lights, trying not to get intercepted. They land in a very short space on a secondary runway of Entebbe Airport and unload, while still moving, the Mercedes repainted in black and a couple of trucks, obviously military. On board that Mercedes and the trucks is the Sayeret Matkal Commando, with Yoni Netanyahu at the helm. It's a risky operation that must be carried out quickly and effectively. Yoni Netanyahu doesn't know this. But a few days earlier, the paranoid Idi Amin changed. Mercedes, same model, white color. That's why 2 sentries at the airport entrance become suspicious when they see that car coming. They try to stop it, but the Israelis shoot from the windows with a silencer. They eliminate them immediately. The sentries don't have time to sound the alarm. The convoy thus enters the terminal undisturbed. The Israeli soldiers quickly and silently enter the lobby, and the first thing they do is shout. In Hebrew, they count on the fact that practically all the hostages understand the language. Not quite all, unfortunately. There's a young man, a boy. He's only 19 years old. His name is Jean-Jacques Memoni. He, despite being of Jewish origin, didn't quite understand. When he sees those men in uniform arrive, he instinctively gets up and runs towards them. Jean-Jacques doesn't understand the Hebrew words telling him to stay down, as they are from the Israel Defense Forces. He gets up despite the warning. He falls, possibly due to uncontrollable joy or a nervous reflex. He runs towards the soldiers who, not knowing that he is a hostage, shoot him with a machine gun. But shortly after, 3 of the hijackers, who are awakened by the commotion, try to resist and are quickly killed by the soldiers' fury. 3 other hijackers are in another room. They are reached and killed. It's the hostages themselves who give directions to the Israel Defense Forces soldiers. They say where they are, where the leader is, and all those who support him where he is. Wilfried Boussadi's during Operation Thunderbolt, which succeeds but isn't over yet. The hostages need to be loaded onto the trucks and head back to the Hercules. More trucks arrive. Some were on board the other Hercules. Others are requisitioned on site. The hostages are loaded one after the other. In the meantime, however, the Ugandans have realized the trap. They start shooting. The Sayeret Matkal soldiers intervene, repelling the assault. And it is in this phase that 3 more deaths are recorded after those of Jean-Jacques and the hijackers. 2 are passengers who are hit in the back as they run towards the trucks, mortally wounded. They will expire in a few minutes. The last one to die is him, Yanbi Jonathan Netanyahu. He is hit by a bullet fired by one of the Ugandans. He dies instantly. His body is picked up by his comrades. Because after all, the strength of the Israeli army is precisely this, not to leave anyone behind, neither wounded nor dead. The last Ugandan soldiers are taken out. Not only does the Sayeret Matkal commando leave nothing to chance. While the shooting continues, a small group of commandos heads to the other side of the runway, where the Ugandan Air Force's MiG-17S are stationed. They place the explosive and blow them up. Nothing should interfere with the return plan of the Israeli Hercules, which in fact take off just after midnight. The entire action, from the moment the Mercedes and trucks were unloaded from the Hercules until they took off again lasted just over 30 minutes. A real success, even though it presents those deaths, that French boy, the other two deaths. Among the hostages, Yoni Netanyahu, another soldier, Soren Ersko, who was hit in the spine and will remain paralyzed for the rest of his life. There is still one death, or rather a disappearance. It could be defined as a white death. There is a 75-year-old woman. Her name is Dora Bloch. Her family disappeared during the Holocaust. Dora Bloch. She had flown from Athens to Paris but will never return home as she felt ill during the flight. The flight from Benghazi to Entebbe had experienced a drop in pressure and a panic attack. For this reason, upon arriving in Taberah, she was disembarked and transferred to the hospital, the Ugandan hospital. But her bed the next day is empty. Dora didn't run away. She couldn't run away. She was old, sick. She disappeared without a trace. It will take 3 years to find out her fate. 3 years later, after the fall of Idi Amin's regime, one of the dictator's former collaborators will confess. 2 officers appointed by Amin went to pick up the elderly woman. In defense, they detached the intravenous from her arm, picked her up on their shoulders, took her out of the hospital, and killed her. They buried her in the bush, just like that. The remains of Dora Bloch will be found in 1979. Only then will she be able to be buried. Upon returning to Israel, Operation Thunderbolt is a success, although the death of Yoni Netanyahu is particularly mourned. That mourning in the Netanyahu family forever, changes the young Bibi, according to many analysts and biographers. From that moment, Benjamin Netanyahu divides the world into good and bad, friends and enemies, people with whom one can talk and people with whom one will never talk. Perhaps his extremism was born on that very day, that day in July 1976. This is the hypothesis formulated by many specialists who have analyzed his personality. We cannot know what Benjamin Netanyahu's story would have been without the death of his older brother. We can hypothesize, perhaps if Yoni Netanyahu had survived, if he had told him about the humanity he had experienced in Entebbe. The fact that he saved not only the Jewish or Israeli passengers, but also the crew who were not Jewish or Israeli, but French Catholics. Who knows? Maybe Netanyahu would behave differently today. We can't know, we've said it, but we like to think so. We also like to think that the Entebbe operation, the Thunderbolt operation, the Yandi operation, led to the fall of that bloody dictator who was Idi Amin Dada. And it also contributed to a turning point in the history of Africa. However, we can say one thing: as much as the Palestinian cause has its dignity, as much as every people have the right to a land to live, to cultivate, to preserve in peace, in which to raise and nurture their own children, no cause can be founded on the skin of innocent people. No cause can justify the taking of hostages. No cause can justify blackmail on the skin of the innocent. This applies to what happened to Air France flight. This applies to what is happening right now. At home and surroundings, the only way to resolve issues is through dialogue. If instead the claim is to be right a priori, politically, refusing dialogue with the person in front, even against the worst opponents, if humanity is absent, only barbarism remains. And barbarism, unfortunately, knows no flag. Thank you all.